Good morning and welcome to SimWorld. Today we are back on camera and we're back with a co-host after you had to deal with the solo show for the last week and a half. We are back. Roniel joins us this morning. Good morning, Roniel. How are you?
Pretty good. And I'm sorry that everyone had to deal with the solo show. Marsh has been on travel, so he's also been dealing with some solo action of his own. Happy
Okay,
Friday.
let's keep it appropriate here, Roniel. We're still on the road as we sit here in a living room in Vermont. So we are still not in hot, humid Florida. We are in hot, humid Vermont, although the humidity just a touch different. We're going to talk a little bit of some SEC hoops. A little bit of knowledge about some things or rumors around a couple squads have come out. We're going to talk Kentucky and South Carolina and what these rosters are starting to look like right now. And let's start with Kentucky, where the sense right now is that the backcourt is going to be Trey Trust and Adonis Knight. And I last season was calling for both of those guys to be much more heavily featured in the rotation than they ultimately were. Trey Trust is a spark plug downhill scorer. Adonis Knight is a spark plug, lengthy wing defender, downhill scorer. Trey Trust more of a dynamic, shot 55 or 50% on more than 50 or 100 attempted three pointers last season. To me, this is a team now, if those two are in fact going to be starters for the group next year, completely different type of offense that we would see from the Wildcats compared to what we saw last year.
Absolutely, Marsh. I do everything in my power not to agree with you, but today I will be agreeing. I'll start the show with that.
Sometimes
Very
I'm
different
I'm
team
right.
here.
Sometimes I'm just right.
Right? Hey, the wrong clock is right twice a day, Marsh. Today you are right at this time. And look, I know that a lot of people out there, Rick Blaze is somewhere gonna be fighting this segment to his core, along with a lot of fans out there when we say, okay, look, there's no Jamison Johnson, right? Top five SWBA pick. There's no Glory Tate, who I'm really high on, is no longer on this team. Big names are no longer on this team, but we're talking college basketball. College basketball is about system. It is about coaching style and meeting that system and teamwork. We all know Coach Pope. He likes to get up and down the court. Coach Mark Pope, that is. He likes to get up and down the court. His teams run at a breakneck speed. There's a lot of perimeter play. And last season, look, let's be honest. Some of that could be attributed to Jamison Johnson and Glory Tate and passiveness at times. But it looked like a team confused without an identity. This team will have an identity this upcoming season, and it's because of Trey Trust and Adonis Knight being in starting roles. As you already mentioned, knockdown shooter from Trey Trust. He can run the show. Adonis Knight can go get his own shots. And then lineup's not fully solidified here, Marsh. I know you have some insight on that, but those two moves alone allow this team to have the identity of moving through perimeter play, not having to stop and dump it down low to someone. I love D'Angelo Muto and what he does defensively in the middle. I think he's very versatile. Jamari Duran, just a freshman, but I've heard really great things about what he does protecting the rim. That means the offense is stuck on the perimeter side, for this team, as I said. And I know Coach Pope is excited about that. I know you had some insight on who that fifth wheel could be. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Well, I wouldn't call it insight. I would call it what I would do, which you know, blind squirrel, broken clock, what have you. But Christ Coates, I think, is a player that makes a lot of sense. Yes, you get Young with a second freshman, but Coates is a really good three-point shooter. And if you're gonna have, as you mentioned, Jamari Duran and D'Angelo Muto. Those are two guys that do not stretch the floor really much at all. They are inside athletic threats. Adonis Knight doesn't stretch the floor, or at least didn't do it much last season. You need somebody else to force the defense to spread out a little bit. And in the college game, you can get away with that two shooters on the floor at one point because the floor is just always going to be crunched in ways that at the SWBA level it's not. But if you're going to have three non-shooters out there, I think you need to have a second guy that can open up the floor a little bit to allow Adonis Knight to get rolling downhill, to allow Trey Trust to be free up top and to navigate the offense, to set up the offense, and to hit threes. You get young, but again, in that changing landscape of what this team looks like offensively from last year, you become an up-tempo, three-point, nonstop shooting team in a way that they just weren't when you have Jameson Johnson demanding as many touches as he did.
Sure, and not even just the 3-point shooting, Marsh, which I think they're still going to struggle a little bit from three. You know, maybe they're not going to be a 3-point team exclusively, but I think just by default, you don't have a Jamison Johnson camped in that lane, taking up that space. D'Angelo Muto, Jamari Duran, yes, they're big guys. They're going to be setting screens. They're going to be setting screens. They're going to be higher up in the offensive positioning because that's what Coach Pope wants to do. He wants to run. On some offensive possessions, they may not even cross the 3-point threshold so they can get back on defense. That allows Trey Truss, that allows Adonis Knight to operate. And Christ Coates, an absolute bowling ball going downhill. Like this guy is 6'5", 211 of let me go get a bucket, and he can shoot the three. So just multi-dimensional, and might I add, as good as this team I think they're going to be in the SEC this season. They were missing a guy last season that could go get his own shot and he could operate on the low block as well. Is he a center? No, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's just college basketball. Victor Soto is coming back into the fold, returning from injury. Has a great mid-post game, works from the elbow, a la Kobe Bryant. I'm not calling him Kobe Bryant, but this team has lots of offensive options, and they do not have to use a lot of shot clock to get those buckets this
Yeah.
season. That's what SEC ball is about.
And I think you can do a lot of, wing pick and roll um, with Duran as the screener. You put um, you put Muto in the dunker spot, and then put the ball in Trey Trust's hand. And Trey Trust he can get to the paint without needing any help. He could get to it on an ISO, but you put him in that pick and roll, and then you force the defense to make decisions, right? And you put then in either corner, maybe on the opposite wing, same play corner side, you put Trey Trust, you put Victor Soto, you put Chris Coates and say, you have a choice. You defend that guy and you stay on that guy that's a 40+% 3-point shooter and you worry about them, or Trey Trust and by doing that, Trey Trust is just going to get downhill straight away on his own. Backside help comes. D'Angelo Muto sitting there. He's a great athlete in the dunker spot. Alley-oops coming left and right. Or you just dump it underneath to Rand. There's just so many wrinkles, and I think we're going to see it profiles as a season that can be really great for Adonis Knight at a time when he needs it, right? Sophomore year, same thing with Trey Trust. Draft eligibility begins. The microscope on these guys is going to be large, and we've talked about this a lot. Top 5 picks kind of feel set. It's top 4. Throw John Fett Towns in there as top 5. There's a lot of movement on the back half of this. Not even the back half. The other 25 picks in the first round. A good season from Trey Trust. A good season from Adonis Knight. I don't think it's impossible for those guys. As sophomores, the league is still going to value youth. If they have good seasons, to step in there and fill the vacuum of who's number 6, who's number 7, who's number 8, and so on. Those guys' profile is capable of filling that spot.
Absolutely. Big year for the Kentucky Wildcats in the SEC, in my opinion. And I'll add this last little part. Stephen Burks, team captain last year. Um, he was big time for them in clutch moments. He doesn't even have to start. Honestly, I don't think that he should have been a starter last season. He's one of those glue guys that you put him in moments, but you have so many options now. And Adonis Knight, 1 point, just shade under 2 assists a game last season. You could put him in the pick and roll as well as the ball as into action. So yeah, scary team in the SEC.
They've got 4 freshmen, they've got 5 sophomores, they are young, and they're going to be an interesting group to watch. Let's go to the other Coach Pope, and that's down in South Carolina for the Gamecocks with head coach Trey Pope. I have talked about this being one of the most interesting teams that I am curious about. Pretty huge. Currently, it looks like they're starting 5, which they've lined up a handful of them. Every single one of them, 6'6" and above. Ripper Carey, 6'9", Keandre Bridge, 6'11", Isaiah James, 6'6", Joey Justin, 6'6". 2 freshmen, 2 sophomores, young but lengthy group. I don't know if they're going to score a lot, Yells, but defensively, this is going to be a
Nightmare defensively. They were all, like you said, already on there last season, holding teams to 63 a game. We saw a few games last season where they held teams to in the 40s. So all that length is going to be major. Keandre Baldridge can block shots. We know what Isaiah James is one of the better defenders in not just the SEC, but in the entire nation. And then you bring in a couple other guys who have some defensive promise. But for me, you alluded to it, Marsh. I am, and this is in contrast to what we just talked about with the Wildcats. You may have removed some huge names, but there's going to be a chance for those guys to flourish as a team. And really showcase on for the Wildcats. With South Carolina, we know who Ripper Carey is. We've heard about him nationally, kid out of Houston, but he's really made some waves. Keandre Baldridge, Isaiah James made their name here in college in SimWorld U. Excuse me, and Joey Justins coming out of Georgia. Fairly big name, and Charles Pinkard, coming over via transfer portal. But what I don't see from this team is offense. I
Mm-hmm.
don't see a cohesion in offense because I think you can just pack the paint on these guys because they don't have what I see as a give him the ball with space and
Yep.
allow him to create and or facilitators.
Which is
And we
why
know
the
Coach
most
Dre Pope.
interesting.
This is his interesting, yes, Marsh. So you can stick to the interesting narrative. I'm going to stick to the my goodness, they're going to stop teams from scoring, but will they be able to score? I know I talked
Yeah.
about this offline to you. What I can absolutely imagine is teams trapping the Gamecocks, running a full court press, turning them over, and then running the fast break on them. It doesn't matter how good of a defensive team you are when you're having to defend a fast break because you
Yeah.
could not control the ball. I don't know if Isaiah James is a point guard. I don't know if he's a facilitator. I know he's a hell of a defender. I just have question marks about the construction of this roster.
Yeah, Isaiah James, I think I've talked about his. I think his ceiling is Marcus Smart, who was a top six pick in the SWBA, lengthy, ferocious defender. But you want him to be your number one offensive option, you're going to have a lot of trouble. You're going to have a lot of trouble, and so this team has nobody to get you into it, right? And so I've talked about you could be. They have one guy, Marius Whitmer Thomas, the only guy that's sub 6'5". You could run out a group that's just taller than anybody in the entire nation, but you might have to start Whitmer Thomas as the fourth or the fifth guy because he's the only guy that's shown any ability in the backcourt to be able to facilitate. Another name I would watch is Jamie Ramos. I am not.
And, and to
I
be fair, Marsh, I'm sorry, not just facilitate, just to be able to handle the ball
Yeah,
without turning it over.
right. Because look, I think Ripper Carey. I think he's a 6'9", 200 what 215 something in that range. Big dude. He can be a Aaron Gordon type of next level guy. He could be a Dorian Finney-Smith type of guy. Extremely athletic. Can he eventually maybe shoot a three at a 35% clip to keep you honest? Maybe. Downhill, explosive athlete. But we saw the Aaron Gordon solo act in Orlando. Didn't work. Did not work at all. But he goes to Denver and he becomes a difference maker on a team that eventually gets over the title hump because it says, I have a big man who to operate. I've got a perimeter guy who can operate. I just need to be able to hit a couple shots and then take guys off the bounce off a closeout. And taking a guy off the dribble off a closeout, it's a lot different than taking a guy off the dribble standing still. And so I wonder about a guy like Jamie Ramos potentially filling that spot. He's not a Nikola Jokic type of passer, but he is a great facilitator from the post. And if you're trying to build out a roster that is lacking for offensive creation, a guy like Jamie Ramos could potentially do that. And am I incorrect on this one? Jamie Ramos played for Coach Dre Pope in at the prep level. So Dre Pope's familiar with his game, understands where he could potentially put him, navigate, and move the offense around.
Yeah, Coach Dre Pope, he's gonna have to get familiar with where his guys score, in my opinion. 16% from three from Isaiah James, 18%, 19% from Keandre Baldridge. The only guys who shot worth a damn from the 3-point line is your senior in Cassidy and Charles Pinker, who you brought in. But you can still load the paint. Rip Akiri's going to do his dirt from that inside that elbow range. That's the exact same place Baldridge is going to do his. And Isaiah James, you would hope that maybe he gets lift off of someone where he can get an open jumper or a free lane to attack the rim. But again, just them getting the ball up the court, Marsh, and I know
Yep.
that sounds rudimentary. Them getting the ball up the court, I think, is going to be a challenge here in college.
But look at the next. This is not a foreign concept for a lot of teams, and I know there's a team that you're very familiar with that had this exact problem. They could defend like a mother, But God darn it, if they had to do anything with the basketball and your Houston Rockets, they could not get it done. That is great for the regular season. You know where that's not great? Game 7 at home, first round win in advance, lose, go home. That's where it's not good. And so I think we could see the South Carolina team feast on bad basketball teams, on teams that don't have great offensive weapons or maybe only have one offensive weapon. They could get 20 wins, right? They could go 20 and 10 in the regular season. They could be a top 4 team in the SEC. But then you get to maybe an SEC championship game if they end up top 2 into Hoopsteria, and now you're playing teams that kind of deserve to be there, that belong there, and they kind of just start beating you up. And you get close in a late game, and those offensive limitations start showing up. Between those two, I'm assuming you're favoring Kentucky to be more of a legitimate team. Where do you put both of them in terms of your SEC standing?
Before I answer that question, I'll make one last point because I do love to talk basketball, Marshall. I look at this roster, and no matter what the spacing is, I'm doubling either Ripakiri or Keandre Baldridge because only one of them can have the ball at a time. I can stick to Joey Justins, I can stick to Charles Pinkert, and I can let Isaiah James do whatever he wants. I'm doing that all game, and I'm counting my chances because last season this team held teams to just 63 points a game, but they only scored 61. Just saying. I'm leaning Wildcat. Hey, fate of the universe, Death Beam. Look. Give me the Wildcats. I'm taking Kentucky. I'm favoring Kentucky in this one.
I think Kentucky, not to preempt. I'm preempting all of my conversations with Sniper since I went ahead and did the Big 12 power top 3 rankings without him this week. Uh, Kentucky's going to be a top 3 team for me. I don't know that South Carolina is, but they're a top 3 most interesting team to me. They're the same way that SMU is a top 3 most interesting team to me in the coming season because I'm sitting there saying I don't know. The SMU is going to be tiny. They're going to be smaller than everybody else. South Carolina is going to be bigger than anyone else. I don't know that ends up meaning anything outside of I'm very interested. One parting shot. I have one bone to pick with you. Of course,
Most important part for South Carolina before you tear me to shreds.
we've already been doing that
College
for the last 15
basketball.
minutes.
College basketball is the long game. The big plus for South Carolina to me was that they were able to bring in a Dre Pope, highly touted prep coach, and they were able to bring in a Ripper Carey and a Joey Justins, and get a transfer in from Charles Pinkert. What they are now known as is a school that can bring in major players. They're gonna have to take some time to facilitate building a cohesive roster.
And look, there's been guys. Donta Walker, we didn't expect to be a difference maker on a team that contended or at least was relevant in college basketball. Newly Cox, Travion Novick, 3 guys, wing players that we weren't really sure if they were going to be capable of being number 1 guys. They all ended up having great seasons. Now, did both of those teams struggle come Hoopsteria? They sure did. But they also had really, really great regular seasons because of the play of both of those guys. It's very possible that Justin's and a Carey reach that type of impact level without being floor spacers, which none of those 3, Walker or the same thing, Kaishon Ship, you can add to that. Not a floor spacer, but guys that led their teams to relevant, successful regular seasons, ultimately fizzled out in Hoopsteria. All right, my bone to pick. You, of course, launched, well, not you, but SimWorld has launched simworldsports.com/merch. Everyone should go there, get all their merchandise from hoodies, graphic tees, coffee mugs, whatever else is, phone cases, whatever else that it is that you so desire. No jerseys, which, by the way, I'm a little, I'm waiting on some jerseys to drop in there. So I see one behind you. I don't really need a Runya Wilson jersey, but
Come on.
I'm looking forward to that day. But I was perusing through and I saw the graphic tees and of course I'll be getting some. I love the Jalen Snow snowman graphic. It is a one of one, just artwork piece. And then I got to support my guy Kai Killens. He's got a great graphic tee. But I have to say, the Marsh Pod graphic tee. If anybody has decided to purchase that and wear that in public, your sense of style is pretty poor because I gotta say, Raniel, the artwork on that pic, it is a tough look. It is a tough look for your boy over here. I'm not pretending to be a handsome man, but that shirt does not do me any justice, and it's a damn good thing I'm married because if I wasn't, and somebody saw that, I'd be like, I'm out. I'm not dealing with
Well,
this anymore.
look,
Get the
don't be
artwork team
upset
on it.
because we went and found. We went and found Brad Grunberg to do a placement actor as you. If you don't know who that is, that's the
No.
guy that was the inspector, and I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry. So I know that that was not an accurate depiction of my guy Marsh. You see him here; he's a handsome guy. So
That
we'll get with
pic
the
is.
art
I got a
department.
little neck
We'll
crane going. I mean, I look like I might have like cerebral palsy or something like that going on. I mean, it's just the eyebrows look like.
we'll
Again, I
pull
don't
that
have
shirt
tiredness.
offline.
Well, look, if
We'll pull
somebody's
that shirt
bought that,
offline for the sake of the kids.
throw it out. Throw that dang thing out. If you decided that that was something you wanted to wear, it is. That is a rough. That's a rough one. But shout out to all the artwork on there, all the other artwork, because I feel singled out because every other piece of work out there is top notch. Because who doesn't want a Sniper J flexing on their chest? Rick Blaze with just the most perfect of graphics. And then you've got my pale tail just saying what up. It's not where I would go if I was trying to outfit myself. All right, Royale, appreciate you hopping on. Any closing thoughts before we send it to the weekend?
No, just excited. You've already kind of done the merch shout out, so I appreciate that. Appreciate everyone who's been here with us at SimWorld. We have some big things in store. Be on the lookout for Sterling. Shout out Sterling, new to the SimWorld family. Just exciting times. And glad to be on the show, Marsh.
Well, it's exciting times because we actually have basketball happening again. Great Beast Coast Elite Showcase. LaShawn Cunningham is replaced Kai Killens for me as he leaves prep. I need to find a new prep guy to fawn over. It's LaShawn Cunningham. I said that yesterday, and I'm going to say it again here. So excited for the closing parts of the off season before we steamroll into the regular season. That's been Roniel Wilson. Appreciate him jumping back in. We will be back on Monday morning. I think maybe back in the old stomping grounds. We'll find out. But appreciate you all riding with us and back on Monday here on SimWorld TV. Only place you can see the game, be the game.